Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching The Political Vigilante. We have covered the fallout of the opioid crisis. We're in an opioid crisis in America, and so many people have died. We talked about how Purdue Pharmaceutical had to pay a $500 million fine. But the Sackler family, in their soulless effort to go down in history as evil, they're worth $11 billion. They don't want to pay it. So they've been filing. They filed for bankruptcy. And it's gotten all the way to the Supreme Court. And so here's basically what happened. We'll go through the whole process here. The Supreme Court hears challenge to bankruptcy plan shielding Sacklers from the opioid. They're currently shielded from the opioid liability, but there is a challenge to the bankruptcy plan. They filed Chapter 11, right? So here's what the Supreme Court heard arguments Monday in a case challenging Purdue Pharma bankruptcy plan, which shields members of the billionaire Sackler family from civil liability over their role in creating and fueling the opioid epidemic. In 2019, Purdue filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection as it faced thousands of lawsuits seeking trillions of dollars in compensation from the Sacklers, who profited from selling the highly addictive drug OxyContin, while fully aware it was directly fueling the opioid epidemic in America. They knew what they were doing. They're awful. They were letting people die as long as they made money. They are just parasites. In America, according to the CDC, opioid overdoses have killed over 500,000 people in the United States over the past 2 decades. Outside the Supreme Court Monday, family members held photos of loved ones lost to the opioid crisis. This is Rebecca Finnerty, whose son died of an overdose in 2016. They were all little slaps on the wrist with little financial fines. And if that continues, there's really no justice here for what's happened in this country. There are hundreds of thousands of lives that are gone, and a fine doesn't do it. And hiding behind bankruptcy protection because you're a billionaire, they're worth $11 billion. And it's ridiculous that they profited off the deaths of our children and are walking away with that. Absolutely true. So this is what is coming out of the Supreme Court. This is from the New York Times. Supreme Court appears split over the opioid settlement for Purdue Pharma. The justices' questions reflected the tension between the practical effect of unraveling the settlement and broader concerns about whether the Sacklers should be granted such wide-ranging immunity. Gee, and I wonder, let's see, the Supreme Court justices seemed divided on Monday over a fiercely contested bankruptcy settlement for Purdue Pharma that would funnel billions of dollars into addressing the opioid epidemic in exchange for shielding members of the wealthy Sackler family from related civil lawsuits. Gee, and I wonder if any of the Supreme Court justices that are like wanting to continue the protections for the Sackler family, I wonder if any of them have gotten money from big pharmaceutical companies. Nah, they're probably just being really morally correct. The U.S. Trustee Program and Office of the Justice Department had challenged the deal for Purdue, the maker of the prescription painkiller OxyContin. It said the agreement violated federal law by granting such wide-ranging legal immunity for the Sacklers, who once controlled the company, even though they themselves had not declared bankruptcy. Questions from the justices reflected why the deal has drawn immense criticism in a dispute that pits money against principle. Under debate was the practical effect of unraveling the agreement, painstakingly negotiating for years for victims and families who have urgently sought settlement funds, and brought concerns over whether releasing the Sacklers from liability would free them from further scrutiny over their role in the opioid crisis. A decision in the case could also have consequences for similar agreements resolved through the bankruptcy system that have been structured to insulate a third party from liability. Let me translate that for you. There's a rule of law for regular folks like you and I, and then billionaires get a separate set of laws. They get a separate set of laws that they're always protected and their wealth is always protected because they own the courts and the politicians, and they get to kill 500,000 people knowingly and then not have to suffer the consequences. That's what America is. That's the freedom of our courts in America. There's 2 sets of rules. The rules for you and I, and the rules for the rich. And this is how you read, this is what the rules for the rich say to us. I can't even begin to imagine the pain these families have gone through. And the ruling elites, when they own and control everything, both parties are corrupt. The media is corrupt. Fox is corrupt. MSNBC is corrupt. CNN's corrupt. The Republicans are corrupt. Trump's corrupt. Biden's corrupt. You're delusional if you think any of those people that I listed are somehow the good guys, or they're not as bad. They're all parasites. They're all part of the ruling elites. And the billionaires, like the Sackler family, need to be held accountable. And if they're not held accountable, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, I know what they'll do. They'll keep us fighting with each other over ridiculous stuff. They'll keep us fighting red state, blue state, fighting over pronouns or whatever, black versus white, men versus women. They'll keep us all fighting over all that stuff so that we don't go string them up. Because if the courts fail us, what are we left to do? Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth, and shave your knuckles for justice. Boom.